Welcome to Nevada Newsmakers. This program is always about power, and today we have the man that controls the power for the Silver State. Our guest today, the chairman and CEO of Sierra Pacific Resources, Walt Higgins. Well, on the Power Pundit panel today, Connie, McMullen, Marlene, Lockard, and everyone's favorite, Martha Gould. It's all coming up next on an all-new Nevada Newsmakers.
Part by the Tahoe-Reno Industrial Center, the world's largest industrial park, the resort at Red Hawk, and the Peppermill family of casinos.
Welcome to the Tahoe-Reno Industrial Center, just 10 minutes east of Sparks. We're proud that Walmart and other Fortune 500 companies have chosen Tahoe-Reno Industrial Center to relocate their businesses. We have sites from under 5 acres to well over 500 acres, and with all of the amenities that every successful corporation requires. Welcome to the Tahoe-Reno Industrial Center, the largest industrial park in the world, and we're building economic prosperity for Nevadans.
Something spectacular has taken wing not far from Reno or Lake Tahoe, and never far from your mind. An escape of fine dining and legendary golf. Introducing the resort at Red Hawk. And at the center of it all, we've feathered our nest with new villas that have elevated Red Hawk to the status of a premier resort. The resort at Red Hawk, a beautiful new arrival in northern Nevada.
As an employer, did you know you can be held liable for negligent hiring? A background screening by Employer Links can uncover criminal records, like alcohol and drug convictions. It can verify the applicant's education, driving records, and professional licenses. Employer Links can check civil records, registered sex offender records, and Social Security fraud. Hiring the right person shouldn't be a gamble. Call Employer Links. Employer Links, protecting your investment.
I tell you, John, this industry has really changed.
Tell me about it.
You seemed to do pretty well last year. What's your secret?
No secrets. Although I'll tell you something. The smartest thing I did was sign up with Pro Group Management.
Really? Yeah, they do workers' comp, right?
Yeah, their services are great. And get this, they saved me 30%. I've heard they saved others 50%.
That works for me.
Pro Group Management. Finally, workers' comp that works for you.
This is Nevada Newsmakers with host Sam Shad, a no-holds-barred political forum. Now, from the Nevada Newsmakers broadcast headquarters, here is Sam Shad.
And we welcome back to the program a good friend of this show, Walt Higgins, who's the chairman and CEO of Sierra Pacific Resources, and that controls Sierra Pacific Power in the north and Nevada Power in the south. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Sam.
Kind of a complex story, so I want to set this up, and I want to thank Scott Craigie for helping me to put this together. Nevada's tax commission ruled that the use taxes, as in sales and use taxes, paid by Southern California Edison on their power plant in southern Nevada should be refunded to Edison. We know the decision requires that all state and local governments that collected use taxes from Edison over the period covered by the order must each individually repay Edison. That amount that they'll get back from state and local governments exceeds $40 million. And the premise is based on two legal bases. First, that Nevada's mining laws require companies pay an extraction tax, the net proceeds of mines tax, when they take minerals from the ground. Those same laws provide that once net proceed taxes are paid, there can be no additional taxes assessed on those proceeds. So bottom line is that Edison is going to get back $40 million. You also, as Sierra Pacific Resources, are done by the same tax, which would be a form of double taxation, correct?
Correct.
So what is the liability from the state at this point, from what you have looked at, to Sierra Pacific Resources?
There's a couple things that we need to think about as we talk about this tax issue. First, Edison operates the Mojave plant, which is located at the south end of Clark County. We are part owners of the Mojave plant. We own about 14% of it. And Edison, acting on behalf of the plant, it's the operating company, believed when they looked at the state law that we were being taxed twice. We were being taxed first when we bought the coal, which is being bought in Utah and taxed in Utah on a similar tax, and then we were being taxed in Nevada with sales tax. Nevada Constitution provides that you can't charge both the mines tax and the sales tax. And accordingly, Edison felt that that was an inappropriate, unconstitutional double taxation. So they pursued it, and they won so far. There's a refund obligation as a result of that. However, for the rest of Nevada, the implication is important because there are other coal-fired plants in Nevada owned by Nevada Power or Sierra Pacific Power, or in the case of the Valmy plant, which is half owned by Sierra Pacific Power, also owned by the Idaho Power Company and operated by us. The same exact situation potentially exists for those plants. Namely, we're paying Utah mines tax and then being taxed again, according to the theory.
Because it doesn't matter where the coal is extracted.
And that's the essence of the argument that Edison made, that it's an infringement of the Interstate Commerce Clause of the Constitution to charge a mines tax in Utah and a sales tax in Nevada. Since the Nevada law says you can't charge both, then you can't charge an out-of-state supply differently. So that's Edison's argument. And the tough thing for us is this. We realize this has potential impact on the counties involved and on the state.
Because, and if I may interrupt, because this money has now gone down to as far down as school districts, correct?
In many cases, yes, especially the Edison case. There are statutes of limitations on this, so one can't go back very far from the time you made your claim.
Is it about 3 years? About
3 years. But the duty of every taxpayer is to pay the taxes they owe, but to pay no more than the taxes they owe. So we're in that classic confrontation, potentially, of we've paid perhaps more taxes than we should have paid, and that is a tax being paid by our customers. Taxes that are levied on a utility are passed directly through to the customer. So the customers of the electric company, on one hand, have paid the tax, and the tax has been received and consumed by people who are in some cases the same people, but in their role as citizens of a particular county or of the state. And the ultimate dichotomy is, what do you do about a problem like that? To preserve the rights of our customers to recover any money they may have paid twice, we are filing with the Nevada Tax Commission each month as we pay our taxes, and we're current on those taxes, claiming that this needs to get resolved. Eventually it will get resolved. It's just a matter of probably the Nevada Supreme Court's going to have to take a look at this and interpret the Constitution.
Oh, really? So you see the state going to the Supreme Court to get a decision?
Yes, I do.
To go back to my original question, what do you think the size of the liability is that will be owed to Sierra Pacific Resources? Is it somewhere in the range of $70 to $100 million?
I don't have an exact number. I think we pay about $300,000 a month in taxes to the state right now, and I think that's for Valmy, for the coal that we use at the Valmy plant. It would probably be somewhat less, but in that range for the Reed Gardner plant. So if I'm right about that number, and I don't have the exact number, that would be about $600,000 a month, which would amount to about $7 million a year, which would amount to, if there's a 3-year statute of limitations, no more than about $20 million.
All right, so $20 million there, and then you've got $40 million.
The Mojave liability.
So that's another $40 million
right
there. Does Idaho Power also have a shot at this?
Well, Idaho Power would have a much louder claim because, in fact, they do not have the same electric customers as the taxpayers, which is our situation. In Idaho's case, the power that they get out of Valmy goes to Idaho customers largely. Therefore, they would say Idaho customers shouldn't be subsidizing Nevada taxpayers, and that's why Edison was quite concerned about this in the first place. It was California electric customers, in their view, seemingly subsidizing Nevada taxpayers by having to pay this tax a second time.
Would their liability be, or would the liability owed to Idaho Power be in the same range as Sierra Pacific?
It would be about half of the $20 million number that we talked about.
So we're up at $70 million at this point?
No, that total included Idaho.
Oh, I see. Okay, so we're looking at about $60 million. Okay.
Yes.
Much more with Walt Higgins when we come back right here on Nevada Newsmakers.
For a videotape copy of any Nevada
Nevada Newsmakers program, call 775-857-2244. The tapes are $20 each, including shipping.
For more than a decade, the Southern Nevada Water Authority has been helping the community embrace conservation as a way of life. That includes replacing more than 50 million square feet of grass with water-smart landscaping. During the worst drought on record, watering restrictions and tough landscaping codes have reduced the community's water use by billions of gallons, even as thousands of new residents were moving into Nevada. That's smart water management, and that's our promise to Nevada.
Reno's best dining values are all at one casino, the Pepper Mill. You can enjoy great savings on our popular specials. Pepper Mill's coffee shop offers daily lunch specials, low-carb dining, and all your favorite comfort foods. You'll find sensational lunch specials featuring Reno's freshest seafood, sushi, pasta, and more at Oceano. And early bird specials at Reno's Premier Steakhouse and Romanza Ristorante Italiano. The best values are at the Pepper Mill. Where are you dining?
Island Inkjet is now open on South Meadows Parkway. Island Inkjet will refill your inkjet cartridges in just 1 hour. We have the ink to precisely match over 240 cartridges, saving you up to 60% on the cost of buying a new cartridge. Our work is 100% guaranteed, and contrary to what you may have heard, refills do not void any printer warranties. You don't throw out your car when it runs out of gas. Don't throw out your cartridges. Refill them at Island Inkjet on South Meadows Parkway by Smith's.
Many of the materials we rely on every day come from the ground, and modern mining technology brings them to us cleaner and safer than ever before. To learn more about America's natural resources, visit nma.org, the National Mining Association.
And now, back to Nevada Newsmakers with Sam Shad.
And we're talking with Walt Higgins, Chairman and CEO of Sierra Pacific Resources. And if you joined us, we're talking about tax monies that appear to be going back to power companies because they were overtaxed. And what the ramifications of that might be is where I want to go right now. This isn't your responsibility, but I'm just curious, in your own mind, what you and Sierra Pacific Resources think is the way that this is going to be determined. I mean, if you were to take money that, for example, went to the Humboldt County School District, they're not a rich school district. They've received money via these taxes. What do you think is going to be the government's response if they have to pay this, the state government's response?
I think that this is one of those really tough dilemmas that we always face. When something's been done that, at least at this point, appears not to have been done right, usually the equities are we try to work things out over some period of time to get it right, and we try to get it right going forward. But the dilemma for a school district, if it's received money that it shouldn't have, is somehow the state's going to have to step in and try to figure out how to support that school district in a different way, because all of the state funding formulas to the schools are based on assumptions about what funds the schools are going to get from all of their sources. So I do believe that good-hearted Nevadans, armed with a decision that's a tough decision, can find a way to work through this over time and not have the impact be catastrophic for a school district.
And so the bottom line is that the likelihood is that the state would pick up the tab.
Well, you would think that something like that has to be considered.
Okay, let's go to another mellow topic here. On Thursday, September 8th, the California Public Utilities Commission agreed that utilities should be allowed to offer economic development rates to companies that would otherwise move operations out of the region. What do you think about that? These are pretty huge amounts here, tariffs beginning at 25%.
Well, California's had a real struggle, and we in Nevada have been the beneficiaries of companies just getting fed up with high taxes, high costs of almost everything, high utility rates, you name it, and moving out. And many, many, many of the immigrants to Nevada are emigrants from California, whether individuals or businesses. In fact, you may remember the governor came to Las Vegas a couple of years ago saying he was here to recruit business, and well, the fact is that hasn't changed much. People still, although California's economy is much better now, people still on average are leaving California to come to Nevada rather than the reverse being true. So California correctly, I think, looks at what do we have to do to get business to stay here or to come here. And they've been authorized now, the power companies, to make some concessions to businesses that would certify, and they have to certify, that they're going to leave or they would only come if they got the concession. Nevada's very fortunate that we have not had a problem in Nevada of failing to attract or to keep businesses. It's very, very rare. And we have very robust economic development activities that are economic development organizations like EDON in Northern Nevada and the Nevada Development Authority that work to hold on to or to attract new business. And the proof is, as you can just see from Reno's economy, and Las Vegas economy speaks for itself, but Reno's much more diverse economy is so because we have a great quality of life, a good tax situation, we have good costs for most things, including utilities, relative to the choices, and this is a great place to come and do business. So people are still coming here. Usually these kind of incentives are an indication that something's wrong with the business dynamic in an area. Nevada has not seen it necessary to offer such a thing.
If you did see concern coming from development companies that businesses weren't coming here, would you be in favor of a similar plan for Nevada?
I think the thing you always have to look at is what's the totality of the business dynamic. There are people that monitor the entire Nevada economy, both at UNR, UNLV, and in the development authorities. If there are signs that something about a particular part of Nevada's economy or the Nevada economy in general are not going the right way, then we as Nevadans need to look at all the choices on how to make that be right. And we've got now 20 or so years of really good success in Nevada of diversifying the economy and bringing new businesses in, and that's been successful so far. So we need to keep monitoring that, and if we need new tools, then we look at new tools, but that's not been necessary so far.
Front page of the newspaper today, Reno Gazette-Journal at least, that the power company had asked for a rise in the ability to charge for natural gas, and that the PUC came back with an even higher figure than you asked for, almost 40% increase in natural gas. I've just got to be concerned for people that they're going to be choosing between food and natural gas.
Let's be sure we get the
I'm not blaming
right.
you.
Yeah, no. The natural gas situation in the United States is about as ugly an energy situation as one could imagine. The price of the product has gone completely crazy, and whereas a few years ago, and I'm talking maybe 10 now, the product sold at wholesale for units of about $2, now it's often next month for sale for $11. That's a factor of 5. Now, it's very closely tied to what's going on with oil in this world. The price of natural gas and the price of oil, which didn't used to be locked, now seem to be economically locked. So until oil sees some mitigation and starts to come down, natural gas is likely to stay high. We're predicting, and that's based on outside experts, that natural gas is probably going to stay somewhere in the $8 or so per unit range compared to that 2 or 3 that we paid 10 years ago. That's not good for the company because we use a lot of gas to make electricity and we use it to sell to our customers, as does Southwest Gas. That's not good for customers because it's painful to make those choices. And we're doing everything we can through hedging practices and smart buying of gas to minimize the impact. All of our hedges will be helping to reduce costs this year. But next year's gas and the year after's gas, unless there's some relief, and nobody's predicting much below $6 or $8 for a long time to come. And relief needs to come in the form of more drilling for gas, more access to places to drill for gas, bringing the gas down from Alaska, that's a 10-year project, and probably bringing liquefied natural gas into the United States. Those kinds of things can help eliminate the pressure. But with gas and oil tied, it's going to be a long time before we see natural gas prices that anybody would consider tolerable. They're just going to be ugly.
And that's where we got to leave it. Walt Higgins, always a pleasure. Thank you so
Sam.
much for being here. We'll be right back on Nevada Newsmakers after this.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
Corporations moving to the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center require reliable power, fiber optic communication, and clean water sources. And yet, there's another amenity we're very proud of here at TRI, rail service. So far, we've built over 2 miles of railroad track, and another 3.6 is under construction. When companies need to transport freight, we're going to help them move it quickly and efficiently. Welcome to the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center, the largest industrial park in the world, building economic prosperity for Nevadans.
The Nevada Beer Wholesalers encourages the responsible consumption of beer. The Nevada Beer Wholesalers Association are sponsors and participants in many community-based efforts such as school education programs, Safe Ride Home, recycling programs, alcohol-free after-prom and graduation parties, safe boating campaigns, and designated driver programs. They are family-owned businesses employing 2,000 Nevadans. They also collect and pay the state excise tax. The Nevada Beer Wholesalers Association, delivering more than just beer.
And now, back to Nevada Newsmakers with Sam Shad.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we're joined by our Power Up Pundit panel today. Martha Gould is here. We also have Connie McMullen, publisher of Senior Spectrum newspapers across the state, and Marlene Lockard with Capital Strategies. What did you guys think of a $70 million liability for the state from this excess tax?
Well, if in fact that holds, and I think the litigation has a long ways to go before we know exactly how that will all fall out. But, it could have catastrophic consequences to local government, schools, and just as you pointed out, Sam. Well, I think it would be a huge issue that the legislature would have to deal with.
Walt was saying that off camera that this would likely be appealed to the Supreme Court by the Taxation Department, even though the Tax Commission ruled unanimously on this. And there are other issues connected with this due to the open meeting law, which we'll have the Attorney General on next week and talk about that. But Martha, wouldn't it seem incumbent upon the state to take this load rather than trying to go back into school districts?
That's a good question.
That's why I'm here.
I was standing and saying to Walt, there goes the rainy day fund. The state probably will have to pick up part of this if indeed this, the state loses. But this goes back to something that I've talked about before, and that is the lack of policy. We get ourselves into these problems because no one ever looks ahead in terms of setting tax policy. And the other thing that is going to have an enormous impact no matter how this court case goes is the fact that the demand for energy in 2 of the largest growing economies, India and China, is going to have one enormous impact on the cost of energy in this country, period, the end. So you add that to this possible liability, and state government is going to hurt, and it will be catastrophic. The county governments will not have the ability to pick up the pieces.
It certainly doesn't seem that way. Connie, from an environmental point of view, it seems to me like the environmentalists are going to take a beating over the next couple of years just because, as Walt's saying, that the cost of natural gas and oil are tied together, and that's just going to open up demands by the public as these prices go up to start drilling in Anwar, to start drilling off the Southern California coast. Where do you see that going?
Sam, I really can't speak to that. My concern, rather than environmental, is the impact on the human element. The rural counties are already suffering. They can't make their tax base, such as White Pine County. The state's looking at some of the highest rate of the uninsured. The nation is looking at Medicaid cuts, where we're already facing Medicaid problems because of the Hurricane Katrina. We are going to be facing some real problems, and that's just, I think, the tip of the iceberg.
And I agree with what Connie said. The human element here is something that has not been addressed. We are a state of working poor. We are a state of uninsured children.
Absolutely.
And
But Sam, to answer your question, I think the environmentalists are going to demand that the power company move more swiftly to comply with the Nevada law on renewable energy and the renewable energy resource
But that's such a minute...
No, it is not.
Eventually it will
This
it'll be a
state
major
is
part.
positioned like no other state to take advantage of that. And that can offer relief for the personal element, the human element. But no progress really has been made, and I think that is a major issue that they have to address in terms of all the other issues, but that does not appear to have been on the front burner. And I think it needs to move in.
Right, but one of the things that will
priority.
help here economically is that if this becomes more viable, that people can make a bigger profit from it, rather than going with traditional sources of energy, then that would be a huge spur toward that. So
But this
I
goes
disagree
back
there.
to public policy again. And so far, there is no strong public policy that says we need to move assertively into the area of renewable resources, using geothermal, using wind power. You know, there is no strong
But
at a national level.
I've just got to say that right now it is just such a small portion, and it's going to take a long time for it to ramp up.
Look to the future.
As
That's what we have to do now.
we are looking to the future, but if you look at things currently, you're not seeing sales of SUVs diving right now. You know, the consumption that we taking care of in this country is huge, and so until the public is shocked into
has to be
$3,
a
maybe
change in
$4
our
gas,
attitude. Yes,
I
the
believe that in
consumers.
England right now, gasoline costs $7 a gallon.
But I think that goes back on the national level, the energy policy that was just passed that did absolutely nothing to address any of these issues, and I think the public's going to demand that Congress do something.
You mean like have cafe standards again, like Senator Bryan had?
That's right. And
mean-
he was, he was on the right track, wasn't he?
Oh, no, I totally agree.
Yes.
I mean, I drive a small vehicle. It may not be necessarily particularly efficient, but it's not a giant gas guzzler that's getting, 8 gallons to the mile.
But we have some responsibility as well.
Well, and that's my point, is that as
Exactly.
long as we're continuing to consume at the rate we are, but my concern is for people that are going to be looking at a 40% hike in their natural gas rates, that's
Some people aren't
unbelievable.
going to be able to afford it.
That's right,
They're going to
they
be making
won't.
some terrible life-threatening choices.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see the fallout from discussion on this show today. We'll be right back on Nevada Newsmakers after this.
Nevada Newsmakers, brought to you in part by the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center, the world's largest industrial park, the resort at Red Hawk, and the Peppermill family of casinos.
South Reno's hotspot for food, fun, and friends is the Tamarack Junction. Play over 480 of the hottest slots and video poker games. Enjoy hot times and sizzling food specials at Sully's Sports Bar, Grill, and Nightclub. Watch your favorite game on one of our jumbo high-definition plasma TVs. Enjoy great food 24 hours a day in the Dining Car Restaurant. Or sample the best hot and cold sandwiches in the Whistle Stop Deli. The Tamarack Junction is your junction for fun. South Virginia and Abadi Ranch Parkway. Yeah.
Remember, you can watch Nevada Newsmakers online at nevadanewsmakers.com. Coming up tomorrow, Bill Welch. He's the head of the Nevada Hospital Association. We'll see you then.